Hello and welcome to this video, which will be something new. Today I'm going to be playing Troy instead of my normal Warhammer content. I'm going to be playing as Odysseus in Truth Behind the Myth. And this guide will be aimed at Legendary difficulty, or just the hardest difficulty settings, but I'm hoping that anyone who watches this will find this quite useful in starting off the Ithaca campaign. Now, first thing you want to do is not put the spy into the army, which I did. Manually resolve this battle. Use the spy just to maybe attack the garrison or target the army. You'll get more experience. There is a chance you'll die, but you just don't get any experience with the spy when he's embedded in an army, or it's like just negligible, the experience. So the first faction you versus the Talebones, they're not too difficult, but it looks deceptively easy. Now, to start off, after you've beaten that army, I like to go for growth in my first settlement. I don't think it's quite as important for Odysseus, just because he has doesn't really have monuments. His bonus buildings are extra resource buildings, which he really needs, considering he can't colonize inland settlements. Or he just doesn't get or able to fully colonize them and build them up well. Now, first off, I like to go for gold. Overall, I like to just get all the passive bonuses to bronze, stone, and food and all of them. But which one I choose depends on the faction. So gold is very important in the early game for prayers. And there aren't really many gold mines near Odysseus. He really struggles with gold at the start. And oftentimes when I start this campaign, I don't really get the gold settlements. Now, in terms of units, just getting the sword skirmishers is a good idea. And after I've beaten the army, when what I do is I don't attack the settlement straight away on turn 1. I wait for turn 2 and I recruit 3 more troops. It just makes it easier, a bit safer. It can be a bit quite a hard battle if you only got 7 units, because they're injured from the previous fight and it's 1 for 1. And also, the Talebone, they rush out to try and defend the settlement, so they don't actually recruit and they don't take advantage of that time. So if you saw from the previous turn, he came out, and next turn he'll have to force march back to the settlement. So as you can see, I'm just recruiting the sword skirmishers. I think they are one of the best units early game from any of the factions that you've got. Although I can't really speak for Amazonians because I don't have those DLC. Now, getting to that last settlement takes 3 turns from where you are. So you've got to be careful. You can't just rush it, take it in, and before they build up an army, they're always going to have a couple of troops. So in this run through, I got up to 16 troops, got that extra replenishment. If I hadn't taken as much damage as I did, I'd probably move them out of the settlement closer, but I don't think it makes a difference. You're going to have to take 3 turns regardless of what you do. If you're confident, you might be able to do it a bit earlier as well, but I just personally wouldn't take the risk. Like, I know this works, it's a safe option. And so turn 4, I force march out. Next turn, I'll be able to normal march onto the island, but I won't be able to attack the settlement. Which is fine. I mean, preferably I'd want to attack the settlement because they don't have many troops, but not the end of the world. They won't attack you because you've got 16 troops and they don't think they can beat you. You got to remember that the garrisons they have and the units they have are mainly militia. They're pretty weak. Your sword skirmishers, they vastly outperform them, even on the highest battle difficulty. And for anyone who has come from my Warhammer content and is watching this, Troy, unlike Warhammer, is actually a melee infantry game. It really is important to have a lot of melee infantry, as they really do outperform 1-to-1 archers, just because that's how the game is, and you've really got to rely on flanking and that kind of thing. So the first battle is the first battle is you can lose. Sometimes they spawn behind you. Sometimes the majority of the forces come from behind. Sometimes they come from the front. Just find a choke point. Find some trees to hide in, and make sure your lord's killing off their lords as a priority, because they're going to have 3 lords. But overall, not too bad a battle. I'm not the best on the battlefield, as I'm not really used to this game, and I still don't have too much trouble with it. But you can always save it and go back to it, and Alt F4 or whatever you need to do. So after you've done that, I never did this, but I would, having looked at the footage, I would get rid of the spy and send him over, because the next faction I'm going to verse is Ellis. So you want to go to Altus, make a safe haven, build one of the recruitment buildings. So that'll finish one of your epic quests, give you +10 diplomacy to all Archaons, which is really useful. Archaons. And then allow you to build sword skirmishers as well. So I just focus on sword skirmishers over slingers or javelin throwers. I'd like to have a couple, but especially for sieges, but it's not. In open field battles, the sword skirmishers are a lot better. As for heroes, you've got the spy. You want to be building a safe haven, taking advantage of that, leveling it up. When it gets to level 3, you can embed it in the army. It gives 5% damage reduction plus 50% sight for the army on the campaign map. And at further levels, you get the ambush bonus, which is really good for Odysseus, who can get the ambush stance. At this point, you can. What I like to do is go to the Divine Will tree, or go to the God stuff, and use the Hecatombs and get a prayer for Zeus. I'm going to go into more detail in a sec about that, but you could do it this turn. I did it a bit later. I did it turn 8, but you could do it turn 7. It doesn't really matter too much. Okay, no, I did send my assassin over, but you could do it or maybe you couldn't do it a bit earlier. Whatever, just send your assassin over there whenever you've got time. You could probably do it earlier, not embed it, and take them on, because it doesn't really make too much of a difference. It's really up to you. I don't think it's too important, as long as you've got the safe haven and you can start making troops when you're there. So as you can see, I've done the prayer, although I didn't see it, so I hope I'm not leading people astray. But at this point, or at least next turn, you want to have used the Hecatombs, done Zeus's prayer, and you're just getting resources from everyone. It takes quite a long time, but by the end of this, you should be getting 3,000 wood, 3,000 food, and it's just so important in the early game. And your best friends in this regard are the Trojans, which is kind of funny. They really have a lot of resources to give you, and I'd take that. So now I'm going to talk about the gods, because I think this is quite a priority at the start. So the first god that I prioritize is Zeus. So in Ithaca, I will make a Temple of Zeus as well as a Priestess. So so from 50 plus, at Respected, you get the Might of Thunderbolt, which is 20% melee attack of club units, 50% javelin armor-piercing missile damage, which is pretty good. But most importantly, you get the +10%, +10 to deal evaluation for all the diplomatic agreements, which I talked about, gives you all those, all that extra non-aggression packs and all the resources that you can get from that. So that's really good. But also, when you get it up to Celebrated, you get recruitment reduction for heroes plus passive bonuses to them. So reduced a chance of getting killed, all that kind of stuff, as well as heroes getting a significant boost to their melee attack, melee defense, that kind of stuff. So that's really, really useful to have throughout the campaign, but especially for the heroes in the early game, because that's when you're going to be recruiting them. And then when you get to Regal Presence, you can unlock recruitment of Minotaurs, which are really, really strong units, really good at taking down heroes. And then you get +1 happiness for all your defensive and military alliances. Now, I don't like to get the defensive or military alliances early game or mid game, but once the Trojan War is really picked up, it's really, really good to have those. And so that'll give you +5 happiness in the end game, so that's really useful. But then also, actually no alsos, and then you get when you get to the Regal Presence and the worshipped status, you can get the worshipped effect on your prayer, which is +20 evaluation, which is insane. And honestly, and when it just stops people from declaring war on you, even when you're a great power, really useful. I pretty much have the prayer of Zeus up 100% for my whole campaigns. Now the second god I'll go for, actually no, before I talk about my second god, let's see where I'm at. So after you've taken out Elis, I like to take out Ionia, so just east of Elis, and that's because that settlement, it's a 4-town settlement. 3 of them are ports. The major city is a port, and they're kind of a threat. They don't really like you. And so dealing with them is pretty important. But once I've defeated them and I've taken the present, as you'll see in the video for the next couple of turns, I like to focus on Aphrodite as my second god. I'm going to talk about that now. I don't think there's too much more to say about the campaign. Next, I'll just talk about what I'm going to do next. So as you can see, they've got quite a big army within Atlas, sorry. And so what I like to do is I like to go near the bridge. I like to go in ambush stance. And then I have my second army behind me. Because I made a second army, you want to be doing that around turn 8, 9, 10. It doesn't really matter. As long as you've got a lord that can come with you, it should still be fine. But having extra troops just makes it that much easier. I ambush stance there, and I just get my other lord behind, making some troops. And every time I've done this, the lord has come out and attacked me, and even if you don't get the ambush, he'll still engage you, or you can still engage him. I can't remember how it works, but so that just makes that easy. You don't really want to be versing 19 troops in Atlas because it just makes it that much harder. It's still winnable, but it's just sieges can be a little bit messy. Oh, I will say, if you are coming from Warhammer, that sieges are done a lot better here than in Warhammer. It's one of the takeaways that I would probably say is a pretty good spot. It's not, but also I think in Warhammer with magic you can do a lot more as well. But so as you can see, I won that battle with the ambush. They did have a few troops get away. It's kind of hard in Troy to chase units down unless you've got centaurs. But I'll have 20 troops, and it's pretty safe. So once you've done this battle, I'm going to be showing this particular battle. I like to avoid them because they take a long time, but I'll just show you the siege battle. Long story short, I like to hide one unit, or not hide one unit, hide all my units in some trees, have one unit not in trees on the opposite side of where my army is, and they'll send all their garrison, or most of their garrison, to where that troop is because they think, oh, that's where the whole army is. And then I can rush the walls and get on the walls and sort of set up a defensive position before they come. Because if you take them head on, you need larger numbers or better troops, and it's just a lot harder. But just watch from here, and you'll see, I'm sure a lot of you have already got a similar strategy or are pretty comfortable with this. But whilst the battle's going on, I will talk about, so once I've taken Atlas and I've taken this region, I don't like keeping this region. If you don't have a major settlement, you can't get the public order buildings. And so it's important to So I just like to give away this whole region that I take to one of the other factions, neighboring factions. I can't remember the names, I haven't written it down, but you can just trade it to them for a hell of a lot of resources, and it's just an extra bonus, and they're not worth keeping. I don't like to deal with rebellions. I only expect one rebellion from this strategy. And I mean, I don't think there's too much more to say about that, but just give them away. Don't try and keep this settlement. It's a waste. It doesn't give you very much. So I think I'll just take this time to talk about Aphrodite. So just takeaway, after you take down Elis, you want to go for Ionia. And so when you've beaten Ionia and you've taken their major settlement, you want to focus on Aphrodite. Now, why do you want to focus on Aphrodite as your second god? So her respected cult is the love of all people, which is plus 10 diplomatic relations with all factions, which is really good. And 200% to all effects of organized games commandment, which gives the public order bonuses, which is really valuable, and in tandem with her prayer, which gives extra happiness and growth. It's extremely valuable, and it just means you don't have public order issues and you can focus on expanding, which is really important for every faction to be able to expand before the Trojan War really begins, which can be really hard. So in a similar fashion to Zeus, you should be able to do the respected prayers for both constantly for the start of the campaign, because they only cost 20 gold, and you can get a 20 gold every turn, and you'll be doing 2 prayers every 5 turns. So, and I think it's worth it. Definitely. Also, as you go from respected to celebrated to worshipped, you'll get extra growth bonuses. You will also get +1 happiness per non-aggression pact. So this, in tandem with the defensive and military alliance bonus that you get from Zeus from worshipped, means that you really don't have any public order issues in the mid and the late game. And then her worship trait is enables recruitment of the satire, as well as +20%, +25% damage resistance to heroes, and then -10% chance of enemy agent actions. Not that important. You really just want to get her celebrated. When you get a 3rd settlement, you want to focus on Zeus and getting him up. And the +25% damage resistance for heroes is pretty good. If you can get some regeneration, which is easier said than done, since you really need to be high level or get lucky with a piece of equipment with Harmonia's necklace. It's really powerful. They're really powerful, but they're really good anyway. A lot of cycle charging does a lot of good. So I think now that the battle's over, is there anything else that I want to talk about? I think that's covered most of it. In terms of, so after you've sort of taken both Ionia, you've consolidated, your Ithaca's getting built up nicely, you've got Zeus underway, you've got Aphrodite underway. Then you need to look to how to expand. So Odysseus, his expansion's kind of awkward, since he can't really go inland properly. I tend to like to just consolidate the coast, which is very easy to do when you've got Aphrodite and Zeus giving you all those bonuses to public relations and that kind of thing. So I think heading north and taking on Carides or the Aetolians. I think Aetolians is a priority. The Carides is reliable. The Aetolians are unreliable. As a general rule, if someone's unreliable or territorial, I like to take them out. And then far north, you've got the Epirots and the Dorians. The Dorians I like to take out because they've just got that one major settlement, which is really good. And the Epirots I like to take out as well because they've got it. So I think Dorians, Epirots are priority. Aeolians you might want to take out because they might declare war on you, and you don't want to head back whilst you're dealing with the Epirots and Dorians. The Carides, I don't like to declare war on them. They're reliable, they're happy with you, and they often get killed off anyway. So I wouldn't recommend dealing with the Carides in the north. Head north, take them out, try and consolidate that, make friends with anyone who's reliable inland, who's a minor faction, who's not unreliable. Take out anyone who's unreliable. Now, in terms of heading south, and I would think about this after you've taken out Ionia, you've just got the Corinthians, and you can't really take any of their land because none of it's port cities. But what you can do is beat them, take the settlements, and then sell them off to Mycenae and Pythia and all those guys just to get extra resources and extra diplomatic bonuses. It also means that you help take them out, and then they don't have to deal with them, and so they start attacking the Trojans and heading across the sea a lot quicker, which is a bonus to you. I should also note about diplomacy is that I don't like to make defensive alliances for the first 60 turns, 70 turns until whoever I'm making a defensive alliance with is at war with a lot of people. Yes, I don't get the public order bonus from Aphrodite, but Sorry, Zeus. But I mean, you're not going to be getting him to worship and getting those bonuses until mid campaign, at least. So that's just something to consider. You can do it earlier. You're probably not going to get too punished for it, but I just like to bide my time with Odysseus. Unlike other factions, he's kind of sheltered. Once you've sort of got over the initial hurdle, you can just focus on consolidating the north, consolidating the south, and then I just like to sail around. Maybe take Knossos, really depends who's in charge there. If Knossos is in charge of Knossos, then I would deal with them because they're unreliable and annoying. If it's one of the other two factions, they'll probably declare war on you, but once you beat them, they're probably going to be pretty docile. So I would always go up to Knossos, subjugate them. You have an epic quest, which means you have to take out Melos, or take the city of Melos. So whoever's in charge of that, you're going to have to declare war on. It's a very useful quest to finish. But yeah, head down south to Knossos, maybe consolidate the archipelago just north there, or that area, the island area in between Troy and the Danaans. And see how that goes. I don't know, with both, it's really just the god powers in this that are powerful, so you shouldn't have any problems with diplomacy in that regard. Just make sure you're vigilant with it. Make sure you're redoing non-aggression pacts, because the Trojans especially like to break them, which is actually really good because they break them and then they're still happy with you because of the evaluation, and then you can just make another agreement, get a bunch more food. Eventually you'll get dragged into a war with them, but that shouldn't be till later on in the campaign. And it's last, I think the last thing before I end this, because I think I've said enough, more than enough, but confederations, really not that valuable. Focus on that in the late game. Definitely don't confederate the Darnanian pillars. You want them to be attacking Troy with you. I think the more allies you have, the better in this game, which I kind of like, but it does make it a little bit repetitive. But I think that's the best way to do it. Confederate any of the minor factions, but you got to remember it's a -5, oh no, -8 public order, which is the same as Warhammer, but then 10 terms of having the debuff. So, and also -10 or 12 influence as well. So it's really not worth doing it in the early game like it is in Warhammer. But I hope you enjoyed this guide, and it helps a lot. Let me know what you thought, if you liked it being sped up, if you could follow along with it. And let me know if this is all a load of crap, because you know, I haven't played it that much, but I thought that the game got a lot easier when I started doing this strategy. And yeah. But I think I'll stop speaking now, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.